Hello and welcome to a special pre-election presentation with Tom Price. I'm calling it a presentation, Tom, because we're going to have the opportunity here to talk about a number of issues related to the upcoming October 24th municipal election. You're well known, our town, our city's institute, looking at various issues that are important to citizens, that we feel are important to citizens. And we're going to discuss some of these now. We're going to talk about why an election is important at this time, some of the major issues, our population situation here, debt, a whole lot of issues. So let's get right into it right now. Why is this election important?
Well, most elections are important to the winners, not necessarily to anyone else. This election is, by contrast, extremely important to the voters. Generally, the voters are quite complacent. They're willing to trust the people running, but that hasn't been working well in Greater Sudbury. So we're in a situation now where the last two elections have taken us into an incredibly serious debt condition, and the last 20 years or more has taken us into a serious decay of our infrastructure. We need to fix both of those, and we need to do it as rapidly as we can. The current council that we have demonstrated they either are incapable of doing that or are unwilling to take the steps to do it. They're not willing to change their method of doing budgets. They're not willing to listen to the public. They set up systems to I guess, indicate that they are consulting the public, but they consult a very small portion of the public. They do not listen to the public speaking through their counselors.
Do the counselors actually, Tom, do they actually go out to the public? Do they actually ask the public? Is there that consultation process that takes place? Before you answer that, I just want to I guess introduce myself, if we didn't at the very beginning. John Lindsay. I'm a president of the CARP organization. We have 1,700 members. A lot of them, most of them retired, but not all. And we don't pretend to represent all seniors in the community, but we're holding another, which we do every election, another all candidates meeting for those who are contesting the mayor's position. That'll be on October the 1st at the Parkside Older Adult Center, Saturday, October the 1st at 1:30 in the afternoon, and all are invited. Let's go back to that question and really, talking to the constituents, finding out what they really, really are interested in and what they want done or not done, as the case may be. And we have approximately at this time, 18% of our population is seniors, 65 and over. And within a decade or two, that's going to rise considerably. And I think by 2040, it's going to be over 30%. These are, yes. You have discussed this. What is the problem with people getting older?
Not a thing. We're both doing it. The problem that we have as a community with people getting older is related to what took place after the Second World War, where there was a baby boom. But that baby boom was not a sustainable boom. It was a bubble. Mm-hmm. And every year since then, that bubble has marched across the years. And for the last number of years, that bubble has been in what I would call our workplace pool of citizens. However, it's moving beyond that now. And the follow-in population is far, far less by about 10,000 or 15,000 people. And that's a workforce pool that is being taken out as that bubble moves into retirement. Mm-hmm. We're probably at the leading edge of that bubble moving into retirement, but that bubble got bigger with early retirements. It's no longer dependent on 65-year-olds moving into retirement. Now there are people at 55 years old also going into retirement and fixed income.
So what you're saying is that these people don't have the taxes? I mean, they do have some income and they're going to be paying taxes, So what's the problem?
Well, the taxes are going to be exceeding their incomes.
Mhm.
And consequently, and even right now, many taxpayers in Greater Sudbury have pensions in the $700 to $1,000 a month range. You cannot live on that. As taxes go up, now there's Canada pension on top of it, but as taxes go up, it takes a bigger and bigger chunk out of that.
So you're saying basically that can we afford really governing with a reduced assessment base?
That's right. And no, we can't.
Uh,
The
I think there's another issue, you know, with respect to the fact that we do have one of the highest percentage of older people of any community outside of Elliott Lake, perhaps. But we have a lot of young people leave, of course, and us old folks eventually leave by dying or moving to another community. But according to some of the more reputable sources, we don't really see the population increasing dramatically over the next few generations. Is this going to present a problem as well?
Well, unfortunately, the population is going to increase over the next 10 years, and in fact, over the next 15 years. Unfortunately, though, it's because those over 55 and 65 are living longer.
Mhm.
So the percentage of our population that is over the 65 years old will be increasing dramatically as the baby boom moves into that retirement phase. The problem is that the population moving in behind is not growing. And it will take, decades for it to grow to replace the baby boom that's moving out.
So
Uh,
if you're a business person and you're looking at, you know, your consumers, as it were, or your audience, whatever, and you can see that they're not going to be as prosperous or have as many resources as they have in the past. Therefore, are you not going to have to adjust your expectations to that reality?
Absolutely. And governments have not been doing that. And not just our local government, our provincial, our federal, the US government, many governments around the world that have been faced with this baby boom have not been adjusting for that drop in taxable income, moving into this phase of where we are at.
It looks like you could be looking at, it's not personal bankruptcy, but it could be municipal or federal or provincial. Now, of course,
Absolutely.
federal government can also just tax us, right? Some more.
Yes.
But now there's a limit, of course, on taxation at the municipal level. And talking about, you know, when we're getting into that area of debt, which you've talked about, you know, the Institute, our towns, our city institute, you've talked about it several times. And there seems to be some disagreement with city bureaucrats with respect to what they consider to be debt. And I've tried to analyze this myself on a very small scale. If you look at, let's say you have an asset that's worth $100,000, but it needs $30,000 worth of repair to maintain it. Now, that is a sum. Now, let's say you go out and borrow $30,000, not to fix that asset, but you just borrowed $30,000 maybe for something else. Now, in my own way of thinking, is not that $60,000 money that's going to be in more practical terms a liability?
Yes.
So why is it that the city says that they don't count the money needed to repair our infrastructure as a debt?
I have no idea. The accounting practices across North America for a number of years did not, especially following World War II, did not look at asset maintenance as a necessary evil. However, as early as 2017 and before that, uh, people began to realize, in fact, in the 1970s, they began to realize in institutions that they had no money. They had not prepared for doing the maintenance required to protect their assets. And those assets were getting to a position where they would have to be replaced. So different organizations, different governments have put into place accounting practices now where maintenance deferral is seen as a debt. You're borrowing from your assets to spend the money somewhere else.
Otherwise, you're
Those
going to have to replace the asset with something new.
you will have to, or you get rid of the asset and that service, whatever it was, disappears.
Mhm.
Okay.
Well, that's certainly something that's a real concern and needs to be addressed because otherwise, if you're looking at your personal finances, you don't want to get in that situation. But our city seems to be moving in that direction. But
Yes.
I just want to talk about something else here because we only have a half an hour. But I know that when we talk about, growing the economy, bringing people to town, making sure that we're going to be prosperous and the great city of the future. But I know my son was just talking to me when he was up visiting just recently. One of my sons lives in Oakville. He was talking about his property tax, and he told me what it was. Just basically, he said if he moved to Sudbury, for the same property, he'd be paying double in taxation. So I did just a little research. A $50,000 home in Oakville where he lives would be paying $3,600, $3,600 in property taxes. For the same value home in Sudbury, $7,700. And yet our bureaucrats say that, no, we're not paying, there's not that much difference. Well, obviously, if you just look at impact figures and taxation figures, there is a difference. So,
Yes.
what's all this talk about? Okay, we're going to have people come here. I mean, he's thinking when he retires of moving, but he's looking at this actual cost of living in this community compared to living elsewhere, in particular in Southern Ontario. And he's really wondering if he's going to do that. So is this a concern?
Absolutely. But, uh,
Now we also know that our industrial taxation commercial rates are also higher than those in other more southern communities. So how are you going to believe some politicians who say we're going to make Sudbury grow with new industries and new population?
well, this historically, this has happened to so many societies that it's pathetic that we haven't learned from it. Uh, Taxation ends up killing empires. Okay. They run out of countries to conquer and loot for the additional wealth to sustain their empire. And finally, the taxation on their own residents kills the empire. People get to the point where they cannot afford the taxation. They get rebellious. There's armed revolts. There's all kinds of things happen. We should be able to avoid that type of situation. Whether we can or not, who knows? Because the people in charge don't listen. And that's a big part of our problem going into the election. We need people who do listen to the public, who it I guess the best thing is called common sense.
Which isn't too common, but if you're looking at, and we want to talk about the big projects here before we run out of time, but if we're looking at candidates, what should be really looking at and listening to candidates, from us ordinary citizens, what should we be expecting? Should we be listening to, we're going to make Sudbury great again? We need big projects to draw people into town. We have to create industry and that sort of thing. Is this what should we be listening to, or should we be listening to more practical solutions?
Oh, we should be listening to more practical solutions. And first of all, common sense isn't about something that's common. Common sense, the term common sense comes from the sense of the common people.
Mhm.
Okay. And that was defined by Thomas Paine prior to the American Declaration of Independence. The sense of the common people will lead us to a sustainable economy. The sense of the elite will not. And we've seen that. We see it all the time. What do people like Bill Gates and Warren Buffett and these people do with their riches? It certainly doesn't help society. It doesn't help our country. So the common sense that in that reference is the sense of the common people.
Well, we
Left
talk
to the,
about, I don't want to interrupt you, Tom, but the common people are in debt. I mean,
that's right.
with the average Canadian, whoever they might be, uh, spends about more than $1.50 for for every dollar they earn. They don't seem to
Yep.
have the same comprehension for debt, but our elected people should have.
Well, yes, they do. It's just that the common people say, okay, so I'm in debt. Okay, so what if I go bankrupt? What are they going to do? And they've demonstrated what they will do. They'll send you a new credit card within 2 weeks.
That's true. Well, we've been talking about credit and getting into the big projects, which of course we have the KED, which expanded from 60 million to $215 million, and almost the same amount of money on interest if you look at a 30-year period. And then we have the Junction East, the Junction West. Now it's called the Culture Center, new library, new art gallery. These are what are called some legacy projects. Others call them big projects that are definitely going to enhance the community. How did we get into that situation? And are we looking at it realistically?
Well, to answer your last question first, no, we're not looking at it realistically. The first obligation of any government is to look after the public that they serve. We have allowed bureaucrats to switch it around to where we serve the bureaucracy. And that is not healthy and is not sustainable because they depend on us for the money to sustain that bureaucracy. So you can't live that way very long. It's coming to an end, and as the older people move into retirement, it will become even more pronounced. What we should have been doing is 20 to 30 years ago, we should have been planning for this reduction in our workforces because it's all over North America. It's not just in Sudbury, it's not just in Canada. We have not planned for that. But here in Sudbury, we can take steps to take care of that. We can cut out financing the wants and the wishes of people who would like to have playpens, whether it's an arena or whether it's a casino, whatever it is, but would rather have roads that they can navigate to go to work, whether they have fire protection in the community where they live, whether they have good water supply. That's what we should be concentrating on, and we should be concentrating on it in the most efficient manner possible.
Now, we're not endorsing any candidates. We're just providing information. That's what the Institute has done, which you've done over the past couple of election cycles, actually, and done a very good job. But we have this past couple of councils, and some of the councilors have said, hey, we've done great. Keep electing us because, we have been a real asset to the community. Now, I think you'd call that into question.
Well, I would ask, name one.
Name one good thing, you mean?
One good asset that they've added to our community.
Well, you're gonna have to give me a little time to think on that. But there's a term that has been used.
Yes.
And I think, as a matter of fact, I think one of the candidates used the term talking about sustainability. Now, mind you, I believe that same candidate, just after saying sustainability, also endorsed the building of a new library and art gallery. So, yes. I mean, how do you equate the two?
Well, you can't. Sustainability is sustaining what you already have. And what we already have can be sustained at a far lower cost than building new facilities to replace them or to actually duplicate them. For example, building a big arena on the Kingsway duplicates the one that's downtown, which still has probably 100 years of good life in it with very minimal investment. Our libraries, we have 13 good libraries in the city of Greater Sudbury. So we're going to build a new one to do what? To duplicate how many of those? Are we going to get rid of any of those? Are we going to They're all in good shape. They're all state of the art. And so if you're going to concentrate on that type of project, and it's all about entertaining the masses. If you entertain them, hey, they think things are great, and hey, we're happy. But what they don't realize, but they do complain about, is the fact that they have to pay for those with their taxes. And those taxes are becoming a massive burden. When they realize that all of those things cost out of their pockets, it's going to be too late.
Are we
So
just,
we have to get that message out earlier.
but are we just sort of old codgers who are, looking at the past and saying, well, that was rosier than our current situation, and we're all headed towards going over the cliff, economically, uh, and I know some of us have suffered the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune with respect to our concerns, but when we're talking to those people who are asking for our vote, what should we really be asking them? What should we be, should we be expressing our concerns, or we should be asking them, what are you going to do? Are you going to continue the present course, which appears to be economically unsustainable, or are you going to offer solutions that are going to provide that degree of sustainability? What's your opinion?
Well, first place, there's a major misconception. These projects, nice to have projects, are sold on the basis of it's going to create some economic wealth. It's going to create jobs. Well, for example, let's take the art gallery and the library at $100 million. The jobs that creates will be no different than the jobs you can create spending that $100 million on fixing our roads, fixing our water system. So that money is better spent on fixing the things we need than the things we'd like to have or we would want.
Is that going to provide any economic benefit, though?
Well, obviously, yes, it will, because now you have conditions, asset maintenance that will attract people. You will have a well-run community that will attract businesses. Now, it won't do it for about 10 years or 15 years, but you have to start someplace, and we have to start now.
So that we've talked about our Economic Development Corporation in the past, and the wonder, okay, maybe we can bring jobs to town, but as far as I can determine, there haven't been too many real jobs come to town for a variety of reasons. And some people say that if a business is looking at coming to town, they're looking at the availability of labor, what is the taxation levels, what are the various amenities. And what you're talking about is the amenities is not only, have arenas and playgrounds and that sort of thing, but roads to drive on that make you feel. I know that my friends and relatives have come to town and they think Sudbury's a great place. We'd like to live here, except it's rather rough getting around on your roads. I mean, is that where we should be spending this extra money that's left over, since we're not going to build the arena on the Kingsway? At least it appears we're not going to.
Absolutely. We have to remember that transportation and transportation routes are routes of commerce. Since mankind first, or I guess I should be politically correct, since humans started trading berries and nuts for some meat and meat for some berries and nuts, they've had to travel between their caves. Okay. We're still traveling between supply and demands. That is not going to stop anytime soon in our future. Okay. So if we protect those routes, make those routes easy, efficient to traverse, then we are going to encourage all kinds of economic benefits. It irritates me no end, and I maybe shouldn't say this, but I see people willing to take our roadways, which are actually workplaces for thousands, in fact, hundreds of thousands of workers, truckers, ambulance drivers, firemen, police. These are all doing work on those roads. Those are workplaces. And we set up bicycle paths on them. We set up sporting events on those workplace roads. If you tried to do that in private industry, you would be shut down for safety reasons. And for good cause. That those roads are a workplace. We depend on them. You don't believe it? Just shut down the roads for 6 months.
You
And
better
don't
believe
allow
it.
any, no, they only shut down the Ambassador Bridge for 2 weeks. And look at the chaos that resulted. So
We're, we don't want to cut us off, and we're running out of time. We only have 30 minutes, but we've
okay,
we're maybe going to have to come back again because the election, of course, here we are in September. We have a little more than a month to go before the election, before the advanced polls. But we're at a turning point. Is there any final word you could have out there? We can cover other things like protecting our water resources and that sort of thing, which maybe you do in another episode. But any final word here for those people who are going to cast their vote for the next council?
yes, use your common sense. People out there, the general public, know what needs to be done. Pick people that you know will do that. Pick people that you know has the capability and the expertise to do that. Don't go based on, I'm going to promise you a golden casino, because the golden casino is golden because it is the biggest gold standard for negative balance of trade in existence. Okay.
And we
So
can get it, and we certainly can get into that on another episode.
yes,
There's so much, but we really are doing this for the benefit of our community going forward. A lot of us are not going to be here in the decades to the future, but future generations will, and we're concerned. So don't forget, if you have the opportunity on October 1st, come out and hear comments from those who are vying for the position of mayor. And don't forget the councilors too, because the mayor only has one vote, of course, when it comes around the table. So the other councilors are most important. Sustainability is maybe the issue. And Tom, we're going to talk again on this.
okay, the only other thing I would add, John, is ask your people who are vying for the jobs whether they know what their job will be. And I can tell you, most of them that I've talked to had no idea what their job description is.
It's a big job, and may have good intentions, but it's good to know what you're doing too.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. We will talk again. Tom Price, our Towns, Our City Institute, and John Lindsay. I'm president of CARP, the Canadian Association of Retired Persons here in Sudbury. It's been, thank you very much for watching, and don't forget, be careful, examine the options, and vote.
Absolutely.